buying, selling, marrying, giving in marriage, planting, building, okay? At the end of the tribulation, are those things happening? Well, it's crazy.
Terrifying signs of the rapture unfolding in Israel have sent shockwaves across the globe. Rockets, invasions, and a war atmosphere grip the nation. But is this more than just a conflict? Could it be connected to biblical prophecies like Armageddon? After World War II, Jewish people were scattered far from their homes. But a promise in the Old Testament stayed true. On May 14, 1948, David Ben Gurion, a Jewish leader, announced Israel's formation. This event was predicted in ancient texts like Ezekiel, Jeremiah, and Isaiah, foretelling Israel's return. The prophecy in Ezekiel chapter 36, verse 24 said, "I will gather you from all countries and bring you back to your land." It talked about reuniting scattered Jews in their own land and becoming God's people. In Jeremiah 30, God comforted his people, promising to bring them back from captivity to their forefathers' land. These prophecies focused on gathering the Jewish people from exile and returning them to the Promised Land. Today, Israel is proof of these prophecies coming true. The land promised to the Jewish people is now their home. This shows that God's promises endure, fulfilling ancient prophecies. Despite tough weather and barren land, Israel is making abundant crops grow. They believe in God's promise from Zechariah chapter 8, verse 12, that the land will produce crops and the heavens will drop dew. These ancient promises unfold today. Another prophecy in Zechariah chapter 12 talks about Jerusalem becoming a strong force, unmovable despite difficulties. It speaks of a time when nations gathered against Jerusalem but could not move it. But besides the restoration of the city, another prophecy is the construction of the third temple and a shocking discovery. Some religious folks, especially Orthodox Jews, are really into the idea of building something called the third temple in Israel. This idea started in 1987 with a group called the Temple Movement, and they are really serious about it. Even though not everyone in Israel is very religious these days, the Orthodox Jews feel they must build this new temple, and they are not asking for help from non-religious people. For Orthodox Jews, building this temple is super important because they believe it will make the world better. Gershon Salomon, who leads the Temple Mount Faithful, has been protesting and doing special things for the temple. He thinks it's part of what the Bible promised for the people in the Holy Land. The Sanhedrin, in charge of temple stuff, is getting ready by planting a special forest with needed plants. Rabbi Hillel Weiss, their spokesperson, thinks the temple connects the land and God. Surprisingly, most of the things they used as sacrifices in the old temples were plants that grew in Israel. Also, during the construction, there was a discovery beneath the Al-Aqsa Mosque. A British archaeologist, Robert Hamilton, found a Jewish ritual bath called a mikveh beneath the mosque's floor. This discovery has started more discussions about the historical location of the temple and the chance of building it again. In 1927, a big earthquake in Jerusalem caused damage, including the Al-Aqsa Mosque. During the mandatory period, Robert Hamilton worked with Muslim leaders to do archaeological investigations on the Temple Mount. He documented findings from the Second Temple and Byzantine eras. However, some findings weren't shared at the time to avoid conflicts. 80 years later, these hidden findings match discoveries made by Israeli archaeologists Dr. Gabi Bar-Kai and Zaki Devira, who looked at the earth removed from the Temple Mount. They found remains of a Jewish mikveh from the Second Temple era beneath the mosque's floor, suggesting it was used for purification before entering the temple grounds. The earth also contained small items from the periods of the First and Second Temples. Next happened the arrival of red heifers. Recently, 5 red heifers arrived in Israel, and this got some people very excited. These folks, both Jews and non-Jews, believe these heifers are super important for building the third Jewish temple. They are kept in a secret place, but there are plans to move them to a visitor's center in Shiloh, a historical site connected to the Tabernacle of the Lord. The big deal about these red heifers comes from the Book of Numbers, which it says their ashes are used to purify priests for their work in the temple. According to the Bible, these heifers must be at least 3 years old, with no blemishes, not even one white or black hair. The ceremony must happen on the Mount of Olives, facing where the temple used to be. Rabbi Yitzhak Mamo, who owns the land on the Mount of Olives, says the location is crucial because it aligns with the priest's view of the holy place. He hopes that the red heifer ceremony could take place there within a year and a half, marking the first step toward rebuilding the temple. For the ceremony, they need priests who haven't touched anything dead. Rabbi Mamo says the Temple Institute has 9 pure priests who were born at home to avoid anything impure. These priests are all set and waiting for the ceremony. Byron Stinson from Bona, Israel, involved in finding the red heifers in the United States, thinks the ceremony might happen around Passover 2024 or possibly Shavuot 2024. He says this timeline fits with the heifer's age and the proper ceremony schedule, the Antichrist's role in the temple. Ancient stories tell about a time when a tricky person called the Antichrist will pretend to be the Jewish Messiah and mess things up in the temple. This unsettling story is also mentioned by Paul in a part of the Bible called 2 Thessalonians. He talks about this sneaky person causing trouble in the temple and saying he's God. In 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, Paul warns, "Don't let anyone fool you. Before that happens, there will be a big rebellion, and this sneaky person who does bad things will show up. He will act against everything worshipped and try to take charge in God's temple, saying he's God." Where the first temple stood long ago is now where the Dome of the Rock, an important Muslim place, stands. Recent Islamic authorities say there was no temple here, but an archaeologist, Robert Hamilton, found evidence after an earthquake in 1927. He discovered the Al-Aqsa Mosque was used for Jewish rituals before going to the temple. A ceremony for the third temple has just happened. On October 12th, there was a special ceremony for the third temple. Led by priests and Levites with musical instruments, they marched from Shahar Hashpat to Shiloh in Jerusalem. They used a golden jug to collect water, gave blessings, and performed a ceremony that happens every 7 years. The water part isn't exactly in the Torah, but it's a part of Moses' teachings passed down orally and brings happiness during a holiday. During the last 6 days of Sukkot, this water ceremony matches the pouring wine in the morning service. People around the world joined in Sukkot celebrations, making it a global day of worship. These events link to stories about the third temple in the Bible, making ancient predictions come alive and getting everyone excited about it. Another rapture prophecy took place at Temple Mount, where a couple got married. In Jeremiah chapter 33, verse 11, there's a prediction about a happy time with joyful voices, hinting at happiness connected to a future Messiah and the third temple. This idea is popular in Israel, where Jewish people visit the special Temple Mount, thinking it's a sign of the Messiah's arrival. Eitan Krantman and Coral Daisy Dean from Rehovot and Tel Mond recently got engaged on the Temple Mount. This is becoming common among Jewish couples. They combined 2 parts of a traditional Jewish marriage, the betrothal and the wedding ceremony, under a special canopy called the chuppah. This emphasizes the belief that humans are created in God's image and the idea of an everlasting union. This special moment on the Temple Mount connects to a verse from Jeremiah, often read at weddings, predicting a time of joy and thanksgiving in the land. The Temple Mount has historic gates, like the Gate of Mercy, used by bridegrooms and mourners. More Jewish couples choosing the Temple Mount for engagements see it as the fulfillment of ancient predictions like Zechariah chapter 8, verses 20 and 22, which talks about people from different cities coming to Jerusalem to pray. These events are seen as amazing and in line with the Bible's predictions. And most recently, the war situation occurred in Israel, leading to another fulfillment of the prophecy. About 50 years ago, Israel faced a war called the Yom Kippur War in 1973. Now there's a different kind of conflict happening. Israel is being attacked with many rockets from different directions, and Hamas militants are invading by land, sea, and air. This is causing a lot of problems with many casualties and kidnappings, especially targeting civilians like women and children. Homes are being searched, hostages are taken, and the situation is really bad. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said, "We are at war." Some people who believe in the rapture are connecting this war situation with the Battle of Armageddon. According to the Bible in Revelation chapter 16, verse 16, Armageddon is not just a big battle, but a global rebellion against God's rule. It's like a gathering point for armies challenging God's authority, not tied to one place. The name comes from Mount Megiddo in Israel, known for battles, and it includes natural disasters, showing the power of a higher authority. So what do you think of these rapture signs happening in Israel? Comment below and subscribe for more.